Today I wanted to do a little bit of a test and maybe even a little bit of a review of two different air compressors that I've used both on the RV and on the truck. The reason that I'm doing this is really kind of twofold. So number one, I want to figure out which one is the fastest, which one I want to use as my main air compressor. And then number two, I want to figure out if I actually want to keep both of these. You know, it's always good to have a spare of most things, and you know, it can't hurt to have a backup air compressor. Our most recent trip that we took, I actually used this Viair pump to air up both the trailer and the truck tires, and it just seemed like it took a really long time, longer than what I'm used to seeing in the past using this Briggs Stratton air compressor. So I wanna just do a little bit of a test this morning. I'm gonna air up two tires on the RV. They're both sitting at the same pressure right now. And I basically wanna time each one of them to see how long it takes to go from about 113 pounds up to the cold inflation pressure of 123 pounds. But first, let's do a little bit of a review on these compressors and just basically what my experience with them has been. So the Briggs Stratton I've had for about almost 5 years now. We got it in 2019 with our first RV, and I got it at Walmart, and it was probably, if I remember right, about 70 or 80 bucks. This compressor will go up to 125 pounds max, and it is an AC powered compressor. So you got to plug this into an AC power source. So either in your RV or whatever AC power source you have. So this is just a pretty basic air compressor. It's got a 3-gallon tank on it here. It's kind of loud, but other than that, I've never had any real issues with this thing. All right, the second compressor that I have here is a Viair. This is the Viair 450P RV. So as you can see, this is a 12-volt compressor, and it's just got these alligator clips on it, or these jumper cable style clips on it, and all you do is just clip it onto your battery, and boom, you got a power source for this air compressor. So having that ability to just plug into a battery is nice out on the road for those who don't have access to an AC power source. However, getting back to the Briggs Stratton, even though it takes an AC source to power this thing, it only draws about 3 amps. So one of the additional tests that I'm going to do today that I haven't done yet is I'm actually going to plug this compressor into the truck, because the truck has an AC outlet in the bed that's good up to 400 watts, which is more than 3 amps. This 3 amps should draw somewhere around 360 watts. So we're gonna see if the truck outlet can handle this compressor this morning. All right, so I do wanna get into just some of the basic specs on both of these units real quick. Nothing in depth, because that's not really the purpose of this video. So let's start with this Viair. Again, the Viair 450P RV, and we can see here that the maximum working pressure on this thing is 150 pounds. So that's, I think, probably enough for just about any RV and just about any truck or other tow vehicle that are out there. And then it lists the duty cycle. It says 100% at 100 PSI. And I think what that means is that you can essentially run this thing indefinitely at 100 PSI. But I did find on another page somewhere where it said 100 PSI for 60 minutes. So I don't know why you'd want to use one of these air compressors for more than 60 minutes at 100 pounds, but that's what they list as the duty cycle. But at any rate, it does go up to 150 pounds, so you should have no problems with that airing up any RV or truck tires, like I said before. The last two specs I want to point out about that one is it draws about 23 amps and it weighs about 13 pounds. So it's a fairly light unit, and it's super portable and pretty light to carry around. All right, moving on to the Briggs Stratton. So the Briggs Stratton, again, is an AC powered air compressor. It's a 0.5 horsepower and has a maximum pressure of 125 pounds. Now my RV tires go up to about 123, so I'm gonna be pushing the limits on this air compressor here. So I'm really hoping that it will actually go up to that 123 pounds. We'll see how that works out. The other two things I wanted to point out here was this lists that it generates 0.8 CFM at 40 PSI and 0.6 CFM at 90 PSI. So that's really what I'm gonna be interested in here, is the flow rate that I get out of these. And I'm not gonna be able to measure the actual flow rate. All I'm gonna be able to do is measure how long it takes to go from about 113 pounds up to 123 pounds, which is the max cold inflation pressure on the tires on this RV. Now you might just say, well, can't you just compare the specs on the two to find out which one is gonna provide the higher flow rate. Well, the Viair actually doesn't give any specs on their flow rate. It does give approximate times to go from 110 pounds to 130 pounds on a specific size RV tire, which is not my size of tire. So I don't really have any specs to compare as far as flow rates go between these two compressors. So we're just gonna do an operational test here. We're gonna get some real data, and we're gonna see which one of these units airs up these tires faster. One last thing I'll point out with the Viair is that it did come with several different accessories. I'm not gonna pull them all out right now, but there were several different accessories in there, and that's all fine and dandy, but in reality, for me, what this comes down to is which one of these performs better, and the accessories I can kind of hash out and sort out later about which accessories I wanna use, but I just wanna figure out which one performs the best. Oh, and the Viair compressor is significantly more expensive. On the website, they are listed at about 380, 390 bucks, something like that. So 380 bucks compared to, I think, the 70 or 80 bucks I paid for this. That's a huge difference. So let's head back to the tires and get started on this test. All right, sorry if you can hear the truck in the background, but I gotta have the truck running in order to have that outlet working. All right, the first thing we're gonna do here is make sure that we have the right starting pressure. I'm shooting for 113 pounds here. All right, there we go, 113 pounds is our starting pressure. The Briggs Stratton is all ready to go. It's at about 125 pounds, and we're just gonna let this go until I see that this meter right here, or this gauge, reads 123 pounds. And then obviously the last thing we need to do here is get our stopwatch going. So I'll hit the start here on the stopwatch, and then we'll get hooked up. All right, so this is a little bit interesting. This could be kind of the end of the test, I don't know. So the tire is at about 113 pounds, and when I try to air it up with the Briggs Stratton, I get airflow coming out of this. If I pull the trigger, I have airflow coming out, but when I hook it up here, it just kind of dies at about 113 pounds, which is gonna be a big problem for me for this rig, because I need to be able to go up to about 123 pounds. All right, so I think what's happening here is that the air compressor was charged up to 125 pounds, and the tire was at 113 pounds. As soon as I put the air gun on there and pull the trigger, the pressure just kind of equalized out there, and that air compressor won't kick back on to raise the air pressure again until some set point below this 113. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is probably kick the air on using the air gun until the compressor kicks on, and then we'll connect it up. And then what'll happen is that tank air pressure will come down to equalize with the tire, and then the compressor should stay running again until it hits that 125 pounds, or until I'm done airing this tire up. So this all might sound a little bit confusing, but I really need to figure this out, because I need to know whether or not this air compressor is gonna work for me on the road. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna hit the trigger on the air gun, make that compressor come on, then we'll start our timer, we'll hook up to the tire, and we'll just see what happens here. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not I think this is gonna work at all. So, I don't know, let's just give it a shot and see what happens. So I got my timer set up here again. I'm still at 113 pounds in the tire. We'll see where this takes us. All right, that air compressor has kicked on. It's gonna now try to get up to that 125 pounds. So we're gonna start the timer. We're gonna connect in. All right, so now we're sitting, I can see it coming up. We're at about 100 pounds right now, 103. All right, now we are kind of equalized with the tank at this point. So we're about 109 pounds. And so We're just gonna see how long it takes us to get to that 123. And I can already see that doing it this way is more comparable to what I saw on that Viair the last time I did this. It's, you know, that pressure's coming up pretty slow. It's at about 111 pounds right now, and it's just kind of creeping up. We're at 112. All right, we're at about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'm about 118 pounds. So this is gonna be comparable to that Viair, I think. And now that I think about this a little bit more, it makes sense to me now why my Briggs Stratton, even though I've had some good luck with it in the past, is still taking a little longer than I want it to. So the compressor just kicked off and we're at 120 pounds. It took about 3.5 minutes to get to this 120 pounds. And I don't think this is gonna work for me because this tire's gotta get up to that 123 pounds of cold inflation pressure to support the load on this RV. Okay, and the reason that I'm pretty sure the Briggs Stratton didn't work out the way that I thought it was is I really didn't think about the difference in pressure. That difference in pressure between the Briggs Stratton compressor, the tank that it's, you know, that's full of air, and then the tire that's full of air, that difference in pressure is gonna drive the flow rate. So when I get to the top end of where that Briggs Stratton kind of tops out at that 125, there's very little difference in pressure between that tank and this tire. So that obviously means that the airflow between the tank and the tire is going to be very low. Whereas the Viair doesn't really operate like that. It's just going to continuously pump air at a higher pressure, whatever pressure that is, to air this tire up to that 123 pounds. And just by looking at the specs, we know that that Viair's got a higher max air pressure of 150 pounds. So the Viair might actually be faster. But at any rate, I'm glad I did this test because that Briggs Stratton just isn't going to work for me because it simply can't get these tires high enough. So I guess that's probably the end of my test. Okay, so I gotta admit, I do feel a little bit dumb about that because I should have been able to put together the fact that this air compressor is just not gonna put out the airflow that I need trying to get up to that 123 pounds. So I knew that it was gonna be close to whether or not it could get there at all, but I just wasn't factoring in that the pressure difference just wasn't really going to be great enough to give me enough of a flow rate. So aside from that, aside from kind of how dumb that was, I am still glad that I ran this test because I now know that this compressor is just not going to cut it for me. So as I said before, I was trying to find out two different things. So number one, which one was going to be the best one for this application, which one was going to be my go-to, and then number two, do I need to keep both of these air compressors to have one as a backup? Well, the answer to that is obviously no. This Briggs Stratton just doesn't work for me at all. Well, the sky opened up on me there for a little bit, but we're gonna try and get this done. So obviously this only leaves me with the Viair. Really I don't even need to continue with any kind of testing because now it's my only option. But I guess I do wanna just go ahead and compare it and see how long it's gonna take to air that tire up again from 113 pounds to 123 pounds. Obviously, I was only able to get up to about 120 with that Briggs Stratton, but I did just want to finish this out for you guys so you can see how well this compressor performs. All right, so here we are again, all set up on this tire. We're back down to 113 pounds in here, and I've got the Viair set up back there, and we're just gonna see how this one performs, getting this thing up to 123 pounds. So this one here, this air gun is holding out at about 120 pounds. It started out where I had about 140 pounds locked in the air gun. All right, there we go. We're at 123 pounds now. Now that was actually significantly faster than the Briggs Stratton. So I'll be honest with you, when I used this the last time on our last underway, I'm not sure why it felt like it took so long, but this one actually performs even better than that Briggs Stratton. So I guess it really doesn't matter that the other one doesn't work because this is obviously the one that I'm gonna wanna go with. All right guys, so I had some camera problems there. I'm actually using a different camera now from the selfie stick mode here, but I was having problems with that other camera. I think I got enough footage to make all of that make sense what just happened with the Viair pump. But what I think you're gonna see is that Viair pump was not only able to actually get me up to the pressure I needed to, that 123 pounds, but it was able to get me there faster. So that pump, the Viair pump, took just a little bit over 2 minutes to go from that 113 pounds to that 123 pounds. So obviously this is the pump that I'm going to be going with. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure why I thought that this thing took so long to air the tires up on that last underway. You know, it wasn't a good morning and things were not going right. And maybe I was just a little bit more impatient than I normally am. I don't know what the deal was, but this compressor is going to work out just fine for us. So this didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. It didn't have the results that I either was expecting or wanted, but actually I think it's okay because now I know that that other compressor just wasn't going to work for me at all. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. More importantly, make sure you hit that bell button so that you're notified of all of our future videos. And until that next video, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.